So, good morning once again, dear students of class 12. And today we continue with the same short story which we have been doing last week. The famous excerpt taken from V.S. Naipaul's award winning novel Miguel Street. And the name of the story is B. Wordsworth, as you can see on your screen. So this is the part 2, as you have already seen, part 2 of the video. There will be one more part after this. So let us now scroll up to the place where we had left off in our previous video tutorial. But this time I have taken the pages from your textbook so that it's easier for you to relate and understand. So please keep your textbooks open beside you as you watch the text coming up on your screen now. So we begin from where we had left off. I said, is a funny way to go around selling poetry like that. Only Calypsonians do that sort of thing. A lot of people does buy. So we had stopped here at the end of this second line on your screen. So a lot of people does buy. He's asking a question. He's not saying that a lot of people buy. He's saying a lot of people does buy. So strictly speaking, grammar wise, English grammar wise, this sentence is in fact not a question at all. But because there is a question mark, we must put in the question asking tone in our voice to read this line, and we must remember that this is Caribbean English and has nothing to do with pure British English. He said, no one has yet bought a single copy. So he goes around selling his poetry, yet so far in his life no one has bought from him a single copy of the poem written by him. That is what B. Wordsworth tells the narrator. But why you does keep on going around then? If nobody buys from you, then why do you go around trying to sell your poem? He said, in this way I watch many things and I always hope to meet poets. He says that I get to watch many things because I go around. So it becomes an excuse for me to go around, and in the process of going around places, I see people, newer places and people, and so I get to know and learn so many things from life. And there is always a possibility of meeting another poet just like me. So that is another reason. I said, you really think I is a poet? So do you really think that I am a poet? Don't be confused by I is a poet. That is their way of saying, that's wrong English. But we must understand the underlying meaning of the question. So, do you think I am a poet? The boy is inquisitive. Children have lot many questions to ask, and this man has all the time in the world to answer the questions of the narrator. So he says, you are as good as me. So, you are as good as me. What a motivation. What an incentive to become a poet. You are as good as me. And when B. Wordsworth left, I prayed I would see him again. About a week later, coming back from school one afternoon, I met him at the corner of Miguel Street. So almost a week goes by, and while he is returning from school, this boy happens to meet B. Wordsworth once again at the corner of Miguel Street. We have come to the end of page 118 in your textbook, moving on to page 119. He said, I have been waiting for you for a long time. I said, you sell any poetry yet? Have you been able to sell any of your poems as yet? He shook his head. To nod means to move your head up and down. To shake your head means to move it from side to side. So when he is moving it from side to side, he is meaning no. He hasn't been able to sell any poem as yet. He said, In my yard, I have the best mango tree in Port of Spain. So the whole episode of this story is happening in the town of Port of Spain, and Miguel Street is situated in Port of Spain, which is part of West Indies or part of Trinidad. So he says that I have the best mango tree in my yard. That means inside my compound. My house has a compound, and inside that compound there is this best mango tree in Port of Spain. And now the mangoes are ripe and red and very sweet and juicy. I have waited here for you to tell you this and to invite you to come and eat some of my mangoes. So, B. Wordsworth is inviting the narrator to come to his house. For the first time, he will be going to his house. So, as we have read in the introduction, in the first video, he goes to his house and he discovers a very unkempt, a very disorderly garden in his house. So, the paragraph changes. Now we see the house of B. Wordsworth. He lived in Alberto Street, in a one-roomed hut placed right in the center of the lot. So his property, his land area was moderate, and the building was actually a hut situated in the center of the piece of land, and there was just a single bedroom. One-roomed hut means not one room which makes up the hut, but it has a single bedroom and maybe a lavatory or a porch in front and maybe a kitchen. So these things are additional, but main room, as far as the rooms are concerned, there is only one room, and that is the living room cum bedroom. The yard seemed all green. There was the big mango tree. There was a coconut tree, and there was a plum tree. It's not a palm tree, it's a plum tree. So, all sorts of trees, as you can see. And these trees are common to India as well, because the climate condition in Port of Spain is somewhat similar to that of India. So, when the climate is the same, you generally have the same kind of natural vegetation, and that's the reason why you have mango tree, you have coconut tree, and you have plum tree. The place looked wild. Now, as I was telling you, it was overgrown with weeds. No weeding was done, no proper pruning, cutting the stems, nothing like that. No maintenance of the garden. So the place looked wild, as though it wasn't in the city at all. That means once you stepped into his compound, you seem to have come all the way out into the jungle, leaving the city behind. That was the kind of feeling one would get if one got inside his compound. You couldn't see all the big concrete houses in the street. He was right. The mangoes were sweet and juicy. I ate about 6. A small kid. He can manage. 6 mangoes, no big deal. He ate. And the yellow mango juice ran down my arms to my elbows and down my mouth to my chin, and my shirt was stained. Now that is a big drawback. He has stained his shirt with mango juice, and he knows that he is going to get a thrashing from his angry mother. My mother said when I got home, "Where you was? Where you was?" She's very angry already, because he was supposed to have come back home from school, but while returning from school, he met B. Wordsworth and went away with him. So, the result was that he returned home quite late, because going all the way to Alberto Street, looking around the house and the compound, then sitting down with B. Wordsworth, eating 6 mangoes, talking with him, and then finally walking back all the way to Miguel Street, and then finally reaching home must have taken him more than an hour, minimum more than an hour. And though the mother seems to be a rude woman, she is worried about her child, and that is the reason she is angry. Where you was? You think you is a man now and could go all over the place? Go, cut a whip for me. So she is going to punish him. She is saying, do you think of yourself as a grown-up person? That you can go around wherever you feel like? Go and cut a stick or a whip, rather a whip for me. So the one who is going to be punished will have to bring the instrument of punishment and give it to the mother, and then receive the beating from her. She beat me rather badly, and I ran out of the house swearing that I would never come back. All kids do that. That's the way teenagers behave. They think that they can leave the house and they can make it big in life because they are foolish. So after receiving such a beating, he swore to himself that I will never return home. I went to B. Wordsworth's house. Where did he go? Of course, he did not have enough friends, or maybe he had, but he did not go to any friend because he knew that his mother would find out, because his mother probably knew the houses of all his friends, and most probably all his friends lived in Miguel Street just like him. They were just neighbors. So if he happened to be in some neighbor's house, he would soon be found out by his mother. So he decided to go all the way back to Alberto Street and B. Wordsworth. So I was so angry, my nose was bleeding. B. Wordsworth said, "Stop crying and we will go for a walk." Stop crying, don't cry. Let's go for a walk. You'll feel better. I stopped crying, but I was breathing short, as it happens when you have been sobbing, so your breath is heavy. We went for a walk. We walked down St. Clair Avenue to the Savannah, and we walked to the race course. What is the race course? The race course in all big cities is a place where horse racing takes place, and people who go there generally bet on different horses. It's a kind of gambling game because you never know which horse will win, and then there are hot favorite horses and people bet more on them, and sometimes that very horse loses, and so all your money is lost. So it's just like gambling, just like going to a casino and staking your hard-earned money to gamble. The same way the race course. So anyway, these two don't have money and they are not going to invest on horses or participate in the gambling, but they are just going and looking around the different places. So mark these place names, these are very important. Alberto Street, we have already come across Alberto Street twice. We know Miguel Street where the narrator lives. The city is called Port of Spain. It's in Trinidad, or it's part of Trinidad, and Trinidad is part of West Indies. So step by step, if you remember, West Indies, then Trinidad, then Port of Spain, then Miguel Street, and then the narrator's house. And now they are seeing all these other places in the city. St. Clair Avenue must be a big street or something with modern shops and showrooms, broad and wide, where lots of people gather or come and go. So it is a place worth to be seen in the heart of the city. The savanna normally in geography refers to grasslands in Africa, but here the savanna is probably a place name. And we walked to the race course. B. Wordsworth said, "Now let us lie on the grass and look up at the sky, and I want you to think how far those stars are from us." So I want you to do that. Let's lie down on the grass and look up. The sky is full of stars. Let's try to imagine how far those stars are from us. So we have come to the end of page 119 in your textbook. Moving on to page 120. "I did as he told me, and I saw what he meant. I felt like nothing, and at the same time, I had never felt so big and great in all my life." If you have ever visited a planetarium, or if you have ever lied down on the grass in a big field with the open sky, clear sky, night sky above you, then suddenly you start feeling that you are not part of this earth, that you are part of the sky. You are floating in space, in the dark space among the stars. And you realize that this universe is so huge. It's enormous, so huge that nobody has been able to travel across it even now. So, he understood why B. Wordsworth, his friend, asked him to do this. And he forgot his pain. The thrashing he received from his mother was completely forgotten. He was loving the sight. He was enjoying the beauty of the universe. The open cosmos, or the sky, was right in front of him. So he felt huge, just like the universe. "I forgot all my anger, all my tears, and all the blows. When I said it, I was better," he began telling me the names of the stars. So probably B. Wordsworth asked him, "Are you feeling better?" He said, "Yes, now I am feeling better." So then he started pointing out the stars in the sky and naming them. And I particularly remembered the constellation of Orion the Hunter. What is a constellation? A collection of stars in the sky which can be joined by an imaginary line to give it a shape. So, this shape is that of a hunter. He holds an animal in his outstretched arm, and he has the bow and arrow with him. So, the constellation Orion, or the hunter. Though I don't really know why, I can spot Orion even today, but I have forgotten the rest. Now, this is very significant. I can still, after so many years, says the narrator, after so many years have gone by, coming back to the present, because all this which he is experienced in his childhood days is the past now. He says that now I have forgotten the names of all the other constellations in the sky, as pointed out to me by B. Wordsworth, but I still remember the hunter. Even now, when I look at the open sky, I can make out the hunter in the sky very clearly. So, this is very significant. The hunter. There are two options in life for you. Either be the hunter or be the hunted. If you are the hunted, then you cannot achieve anything. You are a loser. But if you are the hunter, then you can achieve. You can have ambitions, you can have goals, and you can proceed in life and make it big in life. So I can still remember the hunter. Then a light was flashed in our faces, and we saw a policeman. We got up from the grass. The policeman said, "What are you doing here?" Notice that even the policeman speaks that kind of language which the boy and his mother speak. So, what are you doing here? B. Wordsworth said, I have been asking myself the same question for 40 years. See how philosophical this man is. Even when he's being questioned by a policeman, he says, I have been asking this question to myself for the last 40 years. Which means he's more than 40 years old. And he says this: we became friends, B. Wordsworth and I. Now, do you think the policeman must have said anything after that? No. He must have just gently told them to leave, that's all. So, we became friends, B. Wordsworth and I. He told me, you must never tell anybody about me and about the mango tree and the coconut tree and the plum tree. You must keep that a secret. If you tell anybody, I will know, because I am a poet. See his logic. I am a poet and I will know if you tell anyone about me and the trees that you saw in my yard. Well, you can convince a little boy with such logic. A grown-up will laugh at you. I gave him my word and I kept it. Now this boy was honest and he gave his word. I liked his little room. It had more furniture than George's front room, but it looked cleaner and healthier. Who is George? Perhaps another acquaintance of the narrator, comparing with somebody else's room who lives in Miguel Street. But it looked cleaner and healthier, but it also looked lonely. The room was well maintained. Unlike the garden outside, the room, the cottage or the hut in which he lived, the single room hut, it was very well maintained, neat and tidy, but it looked lonely. One person living alone looked very lonely. One day I asked him, Mr. Wordsworth, why you does keep all this bush in your yard? Ain't it does make the place damp? Does it not make the place damp? You don't clean this garden, it's overgrown with weeds. Do you think this is good? He said, listen, and I will tell you a story. Once upon a time, a boy and girl met each other and they fell in love. They loved each other so much, they got married. They were both poets. He is actually relating or narrating the story of his own life, that he had married out of love and something was common between him and his wife. They were both poets. He loved words. She loved grass and flowers and trees, which means she was probably interested in composing nature poetry. They lived happily in a single room. The little boy won't understand, but this is that single room which now looks lonely because his sweetheart is dead. They lived happily in a single room. And then one day the girl poet said to the boy poet, we are going to have another poet in the family. So one day his wife told him that she is expecting a child, that there is going to be another poet in the family, meaning to say, since both of them are poets, their child will also be a poet, will be born with the same poetic quality. But this poet was never born because the girl died and the young poet died with her, inside her. Meaning to say, before giving birth to the child, the mother died, and when she died, the child inside her womb also died. So it was a tragic, very tragic turn of events in this man's life. But he does not directly say it was his life. He just tells it like a story to this little boy. Because that is the way elders very often make little children understand difficult things. Because human relations, love, marriage, parenthood, all these things may not be understood by a teenaged boy like the narrator. So it's only too proper on the poet's part, or rather B. Wordsworth's part, that he relates it in the form of a story in general. So students, we will stop here at the end of page 120, and we will continue from page 120, 21, 22, and the rest of whatever is left, perhaps if we can manage, in the next video, the third video. And just in case it's too lengthy, because nowadays we have to make videos of 30 minutes duration, because the classes are no longer 2 hours classes. So in that case I may have to make a fourth part also, but it all depends on how much can be covered within 30 minutes in the third part. So until then, I hope you have understood whatever I have explained. Thank you very much.